morning all. Welcome to this session, which will be an informal discussion between a lawyer and a judge outside of the bench. And I think it will be interesting because both of us keep an interest for the place of humans within the development of AI. And this is more or less what we wanted to share through two different topics. The first one will be the topic of access to the law. I am myself caught in between two worlds. When you look at the legal activities, some people see it as a pure financial or economic activities to make profit. And I shall say that in this perspective, AI might be seen as tools and assistants that will foster this productivity and efficiency to make money. Me, when I decided to go into law, it was not necessarily just to have a job. I wanted to have a job, but it was because I liked law. So I am, in a way, a little bit old-fashioned. I like to draft by myself. I like to read. I like to search by myself. And I like the interaction with human. But besides that, I like innovation. I have always tried to develop skills within those innovation. In the 90s, I was beyond the first legal website in France, and so I have always been keen in seeing innovation developing, but I am a little bit caught between these two worlds. And coming to the topic of access to justice, what I observe, Judge, today is that everywhere around the world, maybe more in developed countries, there is a growth of the law. There are more laws, and there are more and more people impacted by law. And when you're impacted by law, you may want to claim your rights. And one of the issues nowadays in many countries is how to provide access to everyone to the law, to have their claim heard and sustained. It's difficult because some people don't understand the legal system. They are scared of the legal system. They don't have the means to pay lawyers to access the legal system. And on the other hand, courts have a limited number of judges. And those judges are already sometimes overloaded with cases. And of course, we see that AI could provide a venue to solve this issue of access to the law.
Well, good morning, everyone. John and I agree on many, many things. The interesting thing is we are on the same team, and our team is trying to serve the society, and serving society means serving the citizens of which we are part as well. Access to law. Law is a tool that society uses to maintain control and to keep order. And definitely, the more access to law, the more access to the system, the better it is for everyone. And back in the old days where all of the laws, at least in the US, were kept in books, in libraries that were about the size of this room, now you can literally run a major law firm out of your phone, which is in your pocket. So with respect to access to laws and technology, technology has definitely helped that. AI has definitely taken that a step further where it can provide assistance to those who may not have the resources, whether they be financial, whether they be geographic, or however, to better assist that person in protecting his or her interests, which grows out to helping society protect its interests as well.
Yeah, and coming to these tools, we are at a stage now where we see already a lot of intelligence perception tools which are developed by AI to assist us, and we are moving to a stage where AI will bring intelligent cognition, which means it will bring legal assistance. The last stage being AI becoming autonomous, and this is what raises certain questions in relations with interference with human. How do you see this evolution?
The evolution is great. As you're in practice now, I was in practice for 20 years at a major international firm before I got appointed to the bench. And during my time for representation, I served as general counsel of a major hospital, and I also was on loan as the chief lawyer for the state of Illinois legislature. So I've got a fortunate legal background in the sense that I've drafted the laws, I've practiced under the laws, I've practiced as a client, as the hospital's lawyer, and now here, after 12 years on the bench in Chicago, I'm doing the same thing, but in a broader perspective. I say that because it provides at least me and other judges who have similar experience with the understanding of how this system works, what pressures he is under, what pressures clients provide or put on their lawyers. There's also pressure on judges to administer justice quickly and efficiently. And the one thing that AI does is it allows that to happen. But the one thing that it can't do is put the human element into the ultimate decision-making on certain types of cases. Later on in our discussion, I will opine on some of the practical benefits, and sometimes you can get a little too practical, which gets you in trouble. But I will not pontificate, and I will just continue to let you do that.
I think some of the risks are to become indolent or lazy. We saw that already in the past with, when a computer developed, people started to use templates. And when you use templates, sometimes you become lazy because it's easy to get a template, you fill it, and you lose the essence of your job. So it's also how to keep lawyers. Probably there will be fewer lawyers than now, but how to keep these smarter lawyers to have an interest in their profession and the core ideas behind this profession. A few years ago, I had an interesting experience because AI has already been developed differently in certain countries, but if you look at China, since 2017, they started to develop smart and even robot courts, mainly in the region of Hangzhou. I remember I went there to see this experience in 2019. And it's clear that for specific cases where there is not much at stake and the element of proof can be taken without much bias, you could have a 24 hours open court where people can file their claim, can provide orally their views, and it would be analyzed by AI, and you could have very quickly a decision. We can see also in certain fields nowadays that with digital invoicing, smart contract, non-performance could be just, assessed by a computer, giving a decision. But there are fields of law where I think interference with human is important. And first, because there is a lot of psychology. As lawyers, we do a lot of psychology with our client, with the judge, with all the stakeholders. And it was mentioned this morning, we need to build trust. Trust is very important. And I will take another example to see how this trust can develop or not. If you look at aviation, it's possible to operate passenger planes already since several years without a pilot. Why is it not occurring? Because there is this psychological element that passengers may not be likely to travel in a plane without a pilot, because there is this human trust.
And the humanity is overall, but John and I were laughing before, as a commercial court judge, I deal with money. Money is easy. taking away someone's freedom or taking away someone's child is not. And as a judge, I don't care who's on one side, who's on the other. My job for everyone is to look at the law, apply the facts that side A is giving, side B is giving. I do have discretion to take things into consideration, apply the law, and that's done. I've done my job. Now, the one thing in there is I have the discretion. And when I speak with people who are gung-ho AI, and don't get me wrong, I am gung-ho AI too, but to the person, no one has ever said, if it is a decision impacting you personally, do you want a human or do you want that computer making the decision? What do you think they say? They want the human, okay? Let's get back to practicality. There are a lot of lawsuits. There are not a lot of judges. There are pressures on everyone to be efficient and to get it right. Judges have their own hierarchy. I'm at the first court. If someone's unhappy, they go up to the appellate court. If someone's still unhappy, they go up to the Court of Cassation. Okay, that's the system built in. So that is great. But when I get it, I look at submissions. And again, AI is so good that it's almost too good. And you can tell when you're reading submissions if you do it frequently enough and long enough. And you also kind of get to know lawyers and you get to know the feel of how things work. You can tell if a submission has been drafted by a human or if it's been drafted by AI. And this is where I said earlier, AI can get you in trouble. And I don't know if anyone is catching or keeping up on what happens in the US in the courts, but there are, as we speak, I think 4 federal court lawsuits involving lawyers who submitted documents to judges that were created by AI. And the problem is the US still works on the precedent system and you need cases to back up your arguments. Well, if you can't find a case, why make one up? Or why not make one up? That's what AI will do for you. The problem is if you're quoting the US Supreme Court, those cases are pretty easy to find. And if you have Jean versus Oren, US Supreme Court 2025, citing a proposition for something, it is my responsibility or my clerk's responsibility as a judge to go find that case and see if the Supreme Court did in fact say that. If you can't find the case, you kind of bring the lawyers back in, and depending on your personality in your court, you ask politely, I can't find this. Can you please provide a copy? Well, there's no copy to provide because the case doesn't exist. And if you think this is rare, it is not. Now, there are different penalties for that and there are different results, but the problem is it's the client who is harmed. It is society that is harmed because you are not doing it yourself. You can't let AI create something where something doesn't necessarily exist in the system. So as judges, we read, we compare, we decide. But it's we taking in all of our experiences and all of our knowledge, and it ranges. People approach things from different directions, from different perspectives, and that's a good thing.
And I think what is interesting is that AI will impact also legal formation, legal traineeship, education. Just 3 days ago, I gave an exam in a university in Abu Dhabi, and I told to the students, you are free to use AI to do the exam, but at the end of the day, I will be able to see the difference between AI and something which is personal. So it's a tool When you will work, you will have that tool. But show me what's your understanding and what your personal view. Give some humanity in what you are doing. And I think we should not forget when we get back to justice, justice is a fundamental of our society. Court decisions, they are given in the name of His Highness in the UAE, in the name of people in other countries. They are not given in the name of a machine. So it's important in that sense to keep certain humanity. So I wanted to come to this last subject, which is algorithm and biases, because humans are not perfect. AI will not be perfect. So human bias versus algorithm bias.
Bias is, by definition, a bad word, I would think. We can agree on that. But let me argue this. Human bias. Humans make laws, right? Through the legislature, through whatever legal system, through whatever political government system to which you subscribe. But it's generally human-based. Very, well, at least not yet, do you type in, we want to prevent XYZ, please come up with a law that says that. You may use it, use the grammar or the structure or what have you, but it's a human idea. And yes, as I alluded to before, but as Jean stated accurately and correctly, we all have biases as humans, but it's that bias on the same level, or in some cases the same system or the same environment or culture that applies. And again, when you have an ultimate decision made, if you're going to have bias, I think it's better to have human bias than it is to have algorithmic bias.
Yeah, and I think in the real life nowadays, it's sometimes rare that both parties are happy with the judgment, of course, because claimants and defendants, we are not looking at the same things. We will never make people feel on both sides that justice was fair. But I think that this issue is the same on the human operated justice and AI operated justice, because any intelligence will have a bias. And it's a matter of the framework to try to limit this bias. This is why in some courts you have 1 judge, in other courts you have 3 judges. Lawyers might be biased, clients might be biased. At the end of the day, it's all about trying to reach fair justice for the people.
And that's the ultimate objective that certainly we have in our chosen professions, and the prosecutors and other lawyers here share that, but the interesting thing is society shares that as a group and as a whole. And though AI is a fabulous tool, just as a chisel is to an artisan working out of wood, I can chisel something out of wood, but it will not look like someone with raw talent who uses the chisel as a tool as opposed to using the chisel as a creator. And that's the balance that has to be struck.
So maybe to conclude each, I will give my final
You give yours, I'll give mine.
For people. So as you see, as a practitioner, I feel I look at the development of AI very positively, because I see all what it will bring to the citizen who didn't have access to justice, who didn't have access to the understanding of the law. I understand all what it will bring to us as a lawyer. We spoke about interpretation of cases, looking at cases. If you look at a country like China, which I mentioned before, they have 350 million cases a year. In my country, France, 3 million cases. No human can go through all these cases, and AI will provide tools to find the proper cases, to interpret them, and to bring certain recommendation, and this is a word which is important, recommendation for lawyers, for judges, and so this is a very positive aspect. Now, because we spoke about regulatory this morning, I think that we have to pay attention to keep the system trustworthy for the people, so we need to keep a part of humanity within the system.
I will end on a somewhat more practical and maybe selfish level. Look, as judges, we get it, okay? We understand. And I laugh and joke that lawyers are going to lawyer, all right? So that's fine. No big deal. Lawyers are going to use tools to lawyer, and AI is the tool. My only suggestion, and I say this here without a robe and not behind a bench, because my language would be different in a different environment. My suggestion is you cannot take the human element out of it. Yes, you can look up the statute, depending on your jurisdiction, you can look up a case, you can look up whatever, okay? But you, using that tool, have to decide what to do with that tool, how to use that tool. And when you do that, it is better for you to put together a submission for a judge if that's what you're doing, because we're going to check, we know, and we understand the business aspect of things. You guys got to get things going. It's efficiency. Clients are demanding, everything. We understand that. But you have to take the time to at least read and put in your own thoughts, because AI, sure, it can do it, but sometimes it does it a little too well, or if it runs into a problem, it'll create a way around it, which is, frankly, inappropriate. So write it yourself, rely on AI, but don't let AI do your work for you. Practically speaking, that's what we say.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Thank you.